in intimate spaces or in familiar spaces. Now here what I think is a problem is that in intimate spaces, the subjectivity of a woman is always affected by the processes of violence that she has been through. And this is equally true for a boy or a man if he has been through this kind of violence. But if you have been violated by those people who are supposed to be the people you trust, and Anuja being here, I think she would have talked extensively about this, that if you have been sexually abused by your parents, or by your father, or your uncle, or your elder brother, then what is happening is that the very people who are deeply involved in your forming an idea of who you are, and the very stages of life in which you don't yet know who you are, but you're still getting to know who you are at that very time when sexual abuse takes place, it has a different kind of an impact on the girl's subjectivity. And I think that is something which requires very often a very long-term counseling to be actually undone or to be repaired or for healing to happen along those kinds of lines. On the other hand, there is the kind of, this is also true of marriage. Not exactly the same sort of a situation because maybe it's not a child who's involved in that. But nevertheless, marriage, which is constructed as a space where there will be love, right? There will be intimacy. There will be something for security, which I think Ishwar was also talking about. That space turns out to be the space of extreme violence, most often. And this kind of process is extremely confusing from a psychological perspective, particularly when this question is often asked, why don't women leave? Right? And we know that they don't leave for economic reasons, they don't leave because it's difficult to have houses alone. I don't think as a psychologist that those are the only reasons why women don't leave. I think they don't leave also because the very idea of marriage is that you don't leave it. Right? You try to make it work. And in fact, I have read some very interesting work about, I was just sharing it with one or two people, that when you have married a person and the first time he just bangs something on the table when he's having a conversation with you, you do register that this is violence. But it doesn't seem to be enough to do something about it. What are you going to do within the construct of marriage? You're not going to say, तुमने ये गिलास नीचे ऐसे धम करके कैसे रख दिया, मैं तो जानी हूँ. The next time, it's a little bit more intense. The third time, it's a little bit worse. And gradually what happens is that a whole realm of violence gets created and you find yourself staying inside it. Right? And it becomes more and more difficult for you to leave. So when we talk about education, one of the things I feel, because I've been a college teacher all my life, is that there's very little discussion about the dangers of marriage in our educational system. It's always portrayed as this perfect space. Whereas in fact, I don't think we are in a radical enough space that we can say don't get married. We can say that also. But we certainly do need to say what you are not going to accept within this institution. And I don't think that there are any places that these are easily talked about except by occasional lecturers who are very committed to this kind of an ideological framework. So I think this is something which also needs to be understood, that marriage, the ideology of marriage is actually one which creates a culture of violence, both sexual violence. Most women, if you really ask them, would say that their first sexual experience is rape. Right? They are not prepared. And in any case, the masculine logic is that ये तो करना ही होता है और आज ही करना है. Right? So there isn't really, so many women's sexual life, we can imagine, and many women's sense of their bodies, their sexual bodies, might begin with a violent act. And this is a violent act performed by someone whom they are supposed to have a very long-term relationship with. So what does this do to the subjectivity of the woman? These are kinds of questions that we need to ask. And we need to understand also. Now, when it comes to the kind of things that we were talking about in terms of the medical examinations and so on, also I was really, deeply troubled because I thought that, well, I understand perfectly well what they're talking about. There's nothing wrong with what they're saying. But would it be easy for a woman not to take a bath, for example, if she's been raped by someone and if she's not been otherwise so violently affected, wouldn't she want to change her clothes? It's quite likely that she would, right? So unless we have advertising and a lot of information dissemination which tells women that, look, if this has happened to you, you must complain. When you complain, you have to do A, B, C, D, right? Then and only then are women going to be able to think that this is something that they have to be careful about. Otherwise, they will take routes which are very, I'm not using the word natural, but they are things that you tend to do because you see yourself as having been sort of affected by someone, which you did not want. Another point is consent. Again, it's been talked about already. But हमारे कल्चर में तो कंसेंट का कोई नोशन ही नहीं किसी भी चीज में. ये बात नहीं है कि सिर्फ औरतों के पास इस चीज का आइडिया नहीं है, ये किसी के पास भी नहीं रहता है कि कंसेंट क्या चीज होती है. यहाँ पे इंडिविजुअल का ही नोशन अभी काफी वीक है कुछ मामलों में, तो कंसेंट का नोशन भी काफी वीक है. ज्यादातर सिचुएशंस में लोग कंसेंट कर रहे होते हैं पर वो कंसेंट नहीं कर रहे होते हैं. और ये जो स्प्लिट है कि औरत जिस समय वो एक्ट परफॉर्म कर रही है, सेक्सुअल एक्ट परफॉर्म कर रही है एक आदमी के साथ, या जैसे हमारे डेटा में कई बार ये चीज आती है कि दूसरे आदमी के साथ, तीसरे आदमी के साथ, द हस्बैंड will only bring in other people and say that, look, you have to have sex with so many of them. So the point is that in all of these situations, where is the consent? It's not consent, right? But we are in a paradoxical situation where we would consider a prostitute, a sex worker, let me call it that, a sex worker, we will say, oh, she could not have been raped, even though she has not given consent. And a married woman cannot have been raped, even though she has not given consent either, right? So we have a very strange situation where there is no notion of consent whatsoever, right? And the idea, I think, for many women also is that if we have married, we have consented. It's not only that the idea is there in men's minds, it's also there in the minds of women. And all of these things you would have to challenge through education, through discussion, through consciousness raising, a word which I think has gone sort of out of fashion these days, that we need to really work at a mass scale. And this is not going to work, which will not happen easily through textbooks and all. It happens in groups where you have discussions. So we need a huge amount of mobilization to be able to do this kind of work. Now, what I also, however, want to say is, I hope I'm not taking too long. That's okay, 5 minutes, 2-3 minutes I'll take. That there's also one big problem, and that is that, an act of violence, and here I'm really going to speak purely like a psychologist, is experienced differently by everyone, each woman. It depends on the context in which it happened. It depends on your prior biography. तुम्हारी जो पहले जिंदगी रही है उसमें किस तरह की वायलेंस तुमने एनकाउंटर की है, किस तरह के रिश्तों के बीच में तुम रहे हो, क्या तुमने इर्द गिर्द अपने देखा है, ये सब चीजें डिटरमिन करती हैं इस बात को कि तुम्हारे लिए वायलेंस का एक्सपीरियंस क्या बन जाता है. और दूसरी बात ये कि वायलेंस, हम रैशनली ये एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि वायलेंस है तो वो इस तरह से दिख करके आएगी. लेकिन क्योंकि हर औरत या हर इंसान फर्क होता है, तो और क्योंकि बॉडी और माइंड डिवाइडेड नहीं है एक दूसरे के साथ, तो कभी वायलेंस का इम्पैक्ट जो है वो शरीर पे ही आता चला जाता है. मतलब हेडेक हो सकता है, बैक एक हो सकता है, स्टमक अपसेट्स हो सकते हैं. अगर आप भार्गवी डावर की किताब पढ़ें तो शायद पढ़ी होगी आप लोगों ने ज्यादातर ने, तो उसमें इस पे बहुत सारा रिसर्च दिया हुआ है कि किस तरह से वायलेंस जो है वो डिप्रेशन और सोमेटाइजेशन, जिसको हम कहते हैं कि शारीरिक प्रॉब्लम्स औरतों की लाइफ में क्रिएट करती है। तो जब कोई औरत हमें आके बताती भी है इन चीजों के बारे में ना कि हमारे साथ वायलेंस हुई, एक तो देखिए वो वायलेंस है तो आज ही हुई और आज ही वो औरत पहुंच गई हमारे पास, राइट? उसमें भी बहुत सारा डिनायल, बहुत सारा जिसे कहना चाहिए डिसोसिएशन जिसको हम कहते हैं, यानी कि एक तरीके से साइकिल या माइंड जो है स्प्लिट अप हो जाता है हिस्सों में। कोई हिस्सा कहीं से देख रहा होता है रियलिटी को, कोई हिस्सा कहीं और से देख रहा होता है। तो ये सब चीजें जो है ये इसकी वजह से जब हम कहते हैं कि हर जगह काउंसलर होना चाहिए तो काफी हाईली ट्रेन्ड काउंसलर होना चाहिए जो ये बात समझ पाए कि जो औरत इस समय आई है उसका ट्रॉमा जो है वो बहुत अलग अलग तरीके से हमारे सामने हमें दिखाई पड़ सकता है, राइट? नहीं तो क्या होता है कि हमारा एक्सपेक्टेशन की ट्रॉमा भी ऐसा ही है, उसकी वजह से भी हम कई बार एक औरत की एक्सपीरियंस को समझ नहीं पाते हैं। हमें लगता है कि इसको कुछ हो नहीं रहा है। ये बहुत बार लोग कहते हैं कि अरे तो बिल्कुल ठीक दिखाई पड़ रही है, इसके साथ ऐसा हुआ नहीं होगा। But it's not true. That ठीक दिखाई पड़ना is a sign of denial. The fact that this, I haven't been able to register it in my mind that this has happened to me. So, or, you know, she could really be acting in very many mad ways because she has been through too much of the difficulty. Now, in that process, she has to go through that repeated experience again and again. She has to go through it with the police. She has to go through it in the hospital. She has to go through it in the law courts, with every lawyer, with her family. It's extremely difficult for most women. Here also I'm not going to say that everyone is going to feel it in exactly the same way, because some may not, right? So therefore I'm just going to stop by saying that I do feel that we need, I think that speech and experience, let me just say one last thing, are not identical. What you can say and what you have felt are not the same, and so we do need trained psychologists to be able to take people through this, take women through these things. Thank you.
Dorothy Kamal from Center for Social Research to share her experiences of working with the survivors.
CSR as a counselor, हमारी जो CSR संस्था है, हम लोग 30 सालों से महिलाओं के लिए काम करते हैं डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस पे, और 2009 से हम लोग एक क्राइसिस पे भी काम करते हैं। और अभी मैडम की बात सुन रही थी मैं कि काउंसलिंग करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है हम लोगों के लिए। जब रेप विक्टिम आता है तो वो बीट टू क्लियर कुछ भी नहीं बता पाता, बहुत मुश्किल से उनके साथ बातचीत करना, हम लोगों के लिए भी काउंसलिंग करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है, क्योंकि जो रेप विक्टिम होता है वो ऑलरेडी